Hi, my name is Jaideep Kambuja and I am TechSoup Connect India chapter host. For today's session, we have a very special speaker today with us. His name is Nixon Joseph. Few of you might already be knowing him, and but let me give a brief introduction of Nixon. Nixon is CEO of Children's Lovecastles Trust, and the name of this trust says a lot in itself. Nixon has been former president of SBI Foundation. SBI is the biggest, I think, bank in India, State Bank of India. So Nixon has been experienced banker and CSR professional. He joined SBI in 1985, and he has handled various portfolios. Some of them very interesting. He was president of Toastmasters Club Tokyo and one of the founders of Tokyo International Debating Society. Uh, then he completed 45 full marathons, the only public sector banker with such an achievement. I don't think anybody else would be near to him who is working as a banker and has done marathons, so many marathons. And as coordinator of SBI Youth of India Fellowship, he has been mentoring hundreds of youths year by year. He was President and Chief Operating Officer of SBI Foundation driving CSR activities of State Bank of India. He is currently CEO of Children's Lovecastles Trust, CLT India, as I told you. This is an NGO in the digital education space, taking care of the kids. Uh, and he is Honorary Professor, School of Management of APG Shimla University. And last but not the least, he received the Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Award for Professional Excellence. So today's topic is Availing CSR funds strategies to crack the deal, writing the impactful CSR proposal, whom to approach, how to approach. Over to you, Nixon, and please add if I forgot anything about you or your very powerful portfolio. Over to you, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, Jaideep, for that detailed introduction. Thank you, TechSoup and Crowdera for inviting me for this talk. I am
Yeah.
at present CEO of Children's Lovecastles Trust, which is an NGO in the education space. We are providing access to quality digital STEM education to rural government schools. And so far, we have implemented our digital programs in more than 4,200 schools all over India. And earlier, I was president of SBI Foundation, looking after the CSR projects of SBI and group companies all over India. So there has been a change of a role for me. In my role as President SBI Foundation, I was a donor. And now as a CEO of Children's Lovecastles Trust CLT India, Bangalore, I am a recipient. So I am able to understand the challenges of both donors and recipients, that is mostly NGOs. We have numerous NGOs in India, and their role in supporting social welfare, economic measures in India cannot be expressed in many words. They have been doing a yeoman service during the COVID times, even now. As President SBI Foundation, when we were thinking about helping those affected by COVID, or those who were the adverse victims of the pandemic, we had to depend on grassroots level NGOs. So though SBI Foundation had the resources, it could not do it itself and had to depend on NGOs. And I was amazed, inspired by the way in which various NGOs, in spite of the infectious spread of COVID, in spite of the scare being raised because of COVID, the way in which many of the NGOs, their members, who went around various places to distribute, be it food kits, N95 masks, or various other utility items. I was really amazed at the way our NGOs were rising to the occasion and helping people who were affected by COVID. So it is a fact and well acknowledged that without the contribution of NGOs, the situation in India would have been worse. So all kudos to the NGOs who have been contributing to the social welfare measures being brought about by the government of India, the various state governments, and also efforts in bridging the gap where many of these social welfare measures do not reach the beneficiaries. So I appreciate the role played by NGOs, but at the same time, I have found both when I was in the SBI Foundation as well as here when I'm in Bangalore, the challenges being faced by NGOs. I would tell that these challenges, which I mentioned, have also a role to play in fundraising. That's why I mentioned about these challenges. There are millions of NGOs in India, and therefore, there is a scramble for resources. A few challenges being faced by NGOs, I will list out. One is a lack of credibility. This is perhaps the most plaguing issue for NGOs operating in India, because there have been various scams relating to NGOs, which has affected the credibility of NGOs. So every time an NGO approaches a donor, it's a Herculean task to convince the donor about the credibility of the NGO. So I have often observed that many donors view with suspicion or doubt regarding the activities of NGOs. So there is a lesson here that each NGO should try to be professional. Each NGO should be more transparent. Each NGO should be accountable and responsible for what they are doing, so that the image of NGOs doesn't or adversely affect. In effect, what I mean is NGOs should be run in a professional business entities. Though NGOs should not be fully business, they should adopt the efficiencies of the business sector. They should adopt the transparencies of the business sector, so that NGOs work professionally. This will, to a great extent, address the issue of lack of credibility of NGOs. And NGOs are under government scanner. This is a big challenge. And even a lot of restrictions are placed on the activities of NGOs, which has affected their fundraising capabilities. Many of the NGOs could not get their FCRA accounts renewed. Therefore, what is happening is that all these are providing big challenges to the NGO sector. And lack of marketing. NGOs often struggle to market themselves. NGOs have to come out with the right communication strategy to connect with their potential donors. After the various challenges our NGOs face, the biggest one is, of course, the lack of funds. Gaining access to appropriate donors and then getting the project's proposal sanctioned is a big challenge. Maybe the donors' priorities have changed, or the vision and mission of the NGO and the vision and mission of the donors may not be aligned. So, lack of funds, I view as one of the biggest challenges facing our NGOs. And I view that if funds position is taken care of, much of the challenges can be addressed. Another challenge with respect to NGOs is their lack of strategic planning. Many of the NGOs I have interacted with lack a cohesive strategic plan that would help achieve their vision or mission. And this lack of strategic planning, lack of proper strategies, renders them unable to effectively raise funds. And one of the other issues I have found is that poor governance and networking. Lack of effective governance is very common in NGOs. It's founded by someone and they accommodate their friends or family members as the board of directors or trustees of the NGO. And it is almost like a one-man show. So that poor governance is going to affect such NGOs. Another aspect, another challenge which I find is the lack of ability to network. From my experience in the CSR sector, I find networking to be as important as the availability of funds. Networking is very, very essential for any NGO to raise funds. Another challenge the NGOs face is the lack of technical and organizational capacity to implement and fulfill their missions. The mission of the NGOs may be great. The founder may be a very reputed person, but then whether the NGO is having the resources, the capability, the capacity to achieve the mission and vision. Here, one observation which many donors make is that NGOs don't have the required capability to function as per the requirements of the donors. But here I would tell that though it is a matter of concern, it is not an issue which has to be put at the footsteps of the NGOs. How many of the donors genuinely try to improve the capability and capacity of the NGOs with whom they partner? That is something which donors also have to keep in mind. So what should the NGOs do to receive funds or raise funds? One is locate opportunities. Find appropriate funders. Find appropriate grants which will help achieve your mission and vision. That is, opportunities to be located. Second, we should have a sound proposal. A proposal which is well written and error free. It must contain all the details to show the donor that the NGO has a strategy and is very professional in achieving the project which has been conceived. The proposal should give to the donor an impression that here is an NGO which is different from other NGOs. The way they have presented facts, the coherence with which they have presented the facts, the transparency with which they have presented issues in the proposal. All these will help you get closer to the donor. Another challenge which many of the NGOs face is the inability to use social media. Even now, there are many NGOs which do not have proper IT infrastructure. So we have to address all these challenges before we submit a proposal to the funder. And when we submit a proposal to the funder, as I told you, it should be very, very comprehensive. I will just mention some points which can help you prepare a self-contained and comprehensive proposal. When you submit your proposal, it should contain the organization details. That should be the first paragraph. What is the name of the organization? What is the registered address? How many offices you have? What is the history of the organization? Why was the organization set up? Who are the founders of the organization? What is the vision and mission of the organization? Apart from that, what are the goals and objectives of the organization? Where are your offices and operational areas? What are the geographical outreach? And also mention in the proposal the website of your organization. You have to mention what is the primary nature of your organization, operations, whether it is in the education space, whether it is in the health space, etc. Annual revenue of your organization for the last 3 years. This is required by the donor to assess how much of funds you are handling. If you are handling funds of rupees 1 crore only during the last 3 years, you cannot ask for a donation of 10 crores. So it should be commensurate with the funds you have handled so far. So you have to give details about the annual revenue for the last 3 years. And who is a primary target segment of your operations? Who is benefiting by your operations? Then give details about the registration of the organization, under which act it has been registered, which is the place of registration and date of registration of your organization. So all this will give a fair idea to the donor about your organization. And then you have to mention whether you have aligned with any political association. Have you received funding from any political association or religious organization? Are you aligned with any political party or religious organization? And also mention about the regulatory documents you are having, 12A registration certificate, memorandum of association or trust deed, ATG, whether you are FCRA approved, all these matters should be mentioned in the proposal. Also give copy of the address proof. It can be the electricity bill or telephone bill, should give a copy of the address proof of the organization. Please also attach your IT returns for the last 3 years, along with the audited financial statements for the last 3 years. You should also give a declaration that your organization has not been blacklisted for any activities. Also present whatever things have appeared in the media about the activities of your organization, so that this will give a fair picture to the donor about your standing. Next paragraph should contain details about your management and governance. What is the management profile? Who are the board of directors or trustees of your organization? What is their qualification? What is the kind of experience they are having? What is the top management profile of the organization? Whether there is a CEO, what is the hierarchical structure of your organization? So all these details should be given to show the level of management of your organization. Then mention about board meetings. How regularly you are conducting board meetings? What are the issues discussed in the board meeting? A copy of the minutes of the board meetings can also be enclosed. It should also be mentioned how many board members are there who are not related to the founder. How many independent board members are there? So this is very much important, because in many cases what happens is NGO is started by the founder and he has his family and friends in the NGO, which does not give image of excellent governance. So there is a need to induct independent, experienced, richly experienced experts as board members or trustees in the NGO. Because presence of independent board members adds value to your NGO governance. And how many permanent employees your organization is having? How many of them are contract? What about volunteering? Next, you have to mention about what are the governing policies you are having. What is the policy to determine the remuneration of directors, trustees, or members? What is the remuneration policy for CEO, COO, secretary, treasurer, other chief functionaries? What is the procurement policy of the organization? How do you procure raw materials, equipments, computers, etc., infrastructure, etc.? Whether it's by tendering or it's by nomination, policy should be there, and you have to mention there is a procurement policy for the NGO. What is the HR policy of the organization? Because many of the NGOs do not have a proper HR policy. That is not proper because an NGO is trying to make change in the community. First, charity begins at home. So we should have an HR policy which gives fair remuneration to the employees of the NGO. So you have to mention whether you are having an HR policy. Mention about the IT infrastructure you are having. This is very important during the present times, because many of the donors would require reports from you at regular intervals. And if you are not having proper IT infrastructure, it may not help the cause. So what is the IT infrastructure you are having? What is the policy regarding IT? All these should be mentioned. How do you monitor the projects? How do you track the progress in the projects? What are the methods you are having to track the progress of the projects? How do you measure the qualitative, quantitative impact for the activity or projects? Whether you do third-party evaluation or audit of the projects you have implemented. Because the donor would like to know how you are treating a project after implementation, whether you implement a project and leave, or you conduct a study, independent study, impact study, and see the impact, the change which you have created. These details should be mentioned in the proposal. What is the source of finance for the organization? Whether it is individual, it is government funds. So the projects already implemented by the NGO, how it has been implemented, what were the sources of funding, all these to be mentioned. Do you provide proper fund utilization reports to the donors? What is the frequency at which you are providing reports to the donors, whether it is monthly, quarterly, half yearly? What is the template you use to report to the donor? Are you having a full-time accountant? Are you conducting third-party audits? All these should find mention in the proposal to show that there is a proper control and check for the amounts received and being utilized. Then you have to tell regarding the transparency of the organization operations. Are you having the annual reports audited? How do you share your annual report with the stakeholders? Whether it is kept in the website. How is the remuneration given to the board members or trustees mentioned in the annual report or mentioned in the website? These are to the level of transparency of the organization. Then you come to the project for which you are seeking funds. So first you mention about your organization, how transparent it is, how it is utilizing the funds given to it by the donors, how the reports are submitted, what is the quality of management. All this comes in the first few pages where you mention about the organization. And then you come to the project where you have to mention about the name of the project, what is the duration of the project, and a brief overview of the project, a brief summary of the project. You have to mention whether the theme which you have chosen is in alignment with the Sustainable Development Goals. You have to mention whether the theme you have chosen aligns with Schedule 7 of the Companies Act. Because only those activities themes which gel with or align with Schedule 7 of the Companies Act only will be treated as CSR activities. So mentioned in the proposal that the theme selected is a health or drinking education, which is SDG 4, or this whatever activities you have chosen relates to whichever SDG goals. This will show that the organization has developed a project which is in alignment with Sustainable Development Goals, activities or achievements. Then mention about whether the project will be implemented by yourself or by some other NGOs, whether you are only an intermediary or you will be implementing it directly. What is the financial details of the project? That is, what is the budget? Who will be supporting this project? Whether the project will be supported by one donor or several donors? How are you going to mobilize the funds? Whether other than financial requirements, you require any non-financial support from the donor. Because there could be, like donors could be specialized or experts in various areas. Whether their expertise is required to support the NGO, support the project. What are the non-financial requirements, support you require from the donor? Then you have to mention the problem statement. What is the issue you are going to address by this project? What is the need for this project? What is the project rationale? Why is this project required? It has to be clearly explained. And then already you have mentioned the problem. You have to now tell what is the solution for, what is the solution proposed to address this problem. In detail, you have to mention how your solution is going to address the problem. Finally, mention whether the solution you propose is unique, whether it is a new solution, whether it is innovative. How is it different from the solutions proposed by various other NGOs to address this problem? Then, what will be the qualitative outcome of this solution, of this project? What will be the quantitative outcome of this solution? How many beneficiaries will be there? How many number of lives of the beneficiaries who will be positively affected by this intervention? What is the quantitative outcome of this project has to be mentioned. Then, what is the time frame that will be required to achieve this outcome? Does your organization have previous experience in dealing with these issues and implementing them? Whether you have conducted any impact study of similar projects? If so, mention brief details about them. If it is a new solution, whether it has been tested elsewhere? Mention about the project location. Why you have chosen this project location? What is the rationale for choosing this project location? Are you having the capability to implement this solution? What will be the team like? What is the project team you are having to address this? What is their experience? Who are the direct beneficiaries of this project? Number of direct beneficiaries of the project. Details of the direct beneficiaries of the project. Then who will be the indirect beneficiaries of the project? The estimated number of indirect beneficiaries of this project. What is the implementation model? What is the implementation model of this project? And then mention a logical framework of the activities you are going to do. A logical framework of the activities you are going to do. What are the activities you are going to do? What would be the output of this? How can we measure this output? What will be the output indicators? And if these are the output indicators, how are we going to verify it? How you are going to verify it? What is the means of verification? These details should be there, a logical framework, and then you have to present a timeline of implementation. First year, what are the activities you will do? Second year, what are the activities you will do? It has to be presented either in a quarterly, half-yearly, or yearly format. How are you going to monitor and supervise this project. That's very, very important. The donor would like to know how the funds which are being utilized, how it will be reported, whether it is utilized properly, whether change is brought about in the community. All this, how you are going to capture and report to them. What is the kind of reporting system you are thought about for this project? What is the impact assessment methodology you have considered for this project? Now, all the projects should have some notings or a brief note about the impact aspect of it. The earlier days when donors were happy with the output is over. Donors would like to know what is the impact being created by this project. How is the project going to be sustainable? Once you leave this project after 2 years, 3 years, how will this project continue in that location? What are the sustainable measures you are having in mind? How are you ensuring sustainability? This has to be mentioned. How are you going to scale up this project? This project, you are telling it is a solution for this problem. It is going to be successful. So once it is successful, what are the thoughts you are having about scaling up this project in other locations? This also should be mentioned. Another important thing which you have to mention is, how is the donor going to benefit from this project? What is the visibility you are going to give to the donor? What are the branding opportunities you will be able to give to the donor? Whether you will be able to engage the donors, employees in your project, whether any volunteering opportunities is available. How is the donor going to benefit by partnering with you? This has to be mentioned in detail because this is a very, very important point in tilting the decision in your favor. So this in brief is what a proposal should contain when you approach a donor. So this we may keep in mind that whatever proposal we submit to the donor should be comprehensive, should be self-contained, so that it gives a very good image of the organization as professional and serious about the project which you are going to do, as well as the nature and of the organization. I'll stop here and look for questions if any. Thank you.
Thank you, Nixon. Today's session was very much informative for me, at least, because I have worked for a long number of years in corporate, and I never assumed that NGO's life would be as tough and as strict as corporate's life. Because whatever you told, we used to adhere into the corporate journeys. But I mean, the amount of processes, discipline, procedure, regulations, I mean, what you told are as equally applicable in NGOs or non-profits life.
Jaideep ji, what I would tell is that earlier the NGOs, like main source of funds was the philanthropy, foreign funds, etc. But now the major source is corporate responsibility funds, CSR funds.
Right.
Corporate boards are expecting many kind of information, many kind of details from the NGO. That is why the proposal which we submit to them should be self-contained and contain various details with the donor.
Correct. So guys, I think for all attendees, I have enabled your voice, so you can unmute yourself and ask any questions, or if you want to introduce yourself and tell about yours and need some guidelines from our esteemed speaker, you're most welcome. Or otherwise, you can post your question in the chat and I will read it for Nixon. So, yeah, Mangal.
Hi Nixon, thank you for this session. I remember sending a proposal to you while in your SBI Foundation days, and while you were talking, I can relate to so many details not being present. But just want to understand two things, right? One is uh, very often all the points that you've mentioned over there in this thing in your discussion now. Uh, Either it's not presented in a format as requested by the corporate, especially in the corporate organization. And hence, it becomes very difficult to understand what is the extent of detail that we should be providing. So, is there a must in everything that you spoke about right now that should be there as an hygiene, and all of the rest can be sent based on the requirement? Just wanted to understand that a little more. Yeah.
Okay, see, what happens is like now most of the corporates are having a template,
Okay.
project template. So when you approach them, either it will be in their website, or when you approach them, they would ask you to submit in the template. So that is there means we have to submit whatever details they are asking in the template. So only if those details are there, it will like they will screen that project proposal. So what I have observed is that like not only SBI Foundation, various other corporates also, they have their templates, but generally these templates contain whatever I have just mentioned now about the organization and about the project, and with focus on impact, with focus on how you measure the progress. Earlier days, these things and all were not there. We give money, you utilize it, and all are happy. Now, like it is becoming, I would tell, more corporatized. Whether it is good or bad is a different question. But then, since the money is with the donors and we have to receive money from the donors, we have to some extent, dance to their tunes. So they also will be having their compulsions. Their board may be requiring it. Their directors may be requiring it. That is why they are asking these details. And if a template is there, we have to see that whatever details we give is as per the template. And then only they will screen it and then may come back to you for further clarifications.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Nixon, just second question, just in the interest of time, we'll keep it short. You did mention about networking and building the connections, right? Any thoughts or ideas around how do we do that? Because I think that's one area where, as co-founders or even as in a startup NGO, it requires its own time and energy to do that, right? So how does and startup, a not-for-profit, go about, right, is in towards that, right? And the second challenge being is that the impact that you're trying to create is a little slow. So in the first few years where you're still validating your theory of change, your hypothesis, in that case, how do you build that network and let more people know about the work that you're doing?
It's a very, very good question, and it is a very much relevant for NGOs, especially in the present context, I would tell you, where you have to get funds mostly from corporates. One, like I would tell my experience. I was a banker. I was never into like any networking or any such activities. Only after I came into the CSR sector, I found the importance of networking. I found that whatever we do, we may be doing good things. Like your NGO may be doing very good things. It has to reach the right person, the right donor. And one important thing which I felt is networking. Whatever detailed proposal you submit to the funder, I feel that unless those who take decisions, those board members are aware about your organization even outside this proposal, only then it can tilt the decision in your favor. So one way which I could I find is that one thing is your presence in LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a very good forum where so all the corporates are present. corporate leaders are present, NGOs are present, philanthropies are present. So that is one place where you can get connected to prospective donors. One. Second is various conclaves are being held by various organizations on CSR, funding, etc. That is one platform where you can meet various prospective donors. But now during COVID time, such conclaves have become very, very rare. But then only way is social media. How we can contact people online. That is one way of doing it. Third thing, as I told you, is now NGOs have to be very good in social media. Whatever projects you do, the story behind it has to be amplified. The good things you are doing should reach many people. There, I find many of the NGOs are lacking behind. I have my own experience. I felt that SBI Youth for India Fellowship was a it's a very good fellowship. But then when I took over as coordinator of SBI Youth for India Fellowship, I found its presence in social media was negligible. So I myself, I took on me that to increase the presence of increase the social media presence. And I found within few years, the SBI Youth for India Fellowship was known to many corporates, known to many NGOs, many foundations. So we have to deliberately take steps to improve the visibility of the NGOs. So all these are connected. In fact, networking, social media, fundraising, all these are really connected. Or getting good members into your NGO board. All these really, like the sustainable development goals, one improvement in one goal relates to, it will have its effect on other goals. Same way, whatever challenges I mentioned and just now also, all these will help the NGO go further. If you improve the governance, if you bring independent board members who are able to connect to or help you in networking, help you raise funds, NGO, it will improve the NGO's functioning. If the visibility is, some people are seeing the activities which is reported in LinkedIn, they contact me and ask how we can associate with you, etc. So all these are having their own impact on various aspects of NGO. Networking, writing a good proposal, bringing good resources into the NGO, human resource, attracting human resources into the NGO. All these are having a very good impact, and overall it will help the NGO step heights.
Nixon.
Thank you.
Excellent. That has been really a wonderful session. Any other question from any other participant? Please don't hesitate. I mean, you will rarely get a chance to get a speaker like Nixon with a huge knowledge, and I mean, even if you need, if you want to ask any question out of today's context, you are most welcome. Otherwise, we'll just call it off because it is already 12 o'clock. So, Nixon, anything else you would like to add for the attendees or for the people who will be watching your video later?
Thank you then. Thank you.
All right then, much. Thanks for coming, and we would be calling Nixon again for some other beautiful session for our attendees. Anything more you want to say? All right then, thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you, Nixon. I think rarely do people get one-on-one and a small group time with you. So this
yeah.
Thank you, Jaideep, for coordinating this. And I know there was a glitch yesterday, but thank
you.
There's a lot to learn.
Thanks.
Thank you. See you. Take care. Bye.
Thank you so much. All right. Bye bye.